All right, everyone, we have more good news of the day. Yes, we might be getting the Epstein files. We get all sorts of winning happening. Winning has broken out in the Western Hemisphere. Link in the description, archived, of course, John Roberts pausing a federal court decision that would have forced Donald Trump to give several $billion in foreign aid, obligatory by midnight, pending further litigation, presumptively before SCOTUS. I have a feeling that Trump will win this one, because that's clearly more of an executive power than anything else. It involves national security, potentially. It depends on the country. It involves, taxes and so forth, budgetary concerns, etc. Technically, it would be more of a legislative matter. But let's say that an incarnation of the legislature says that they're going to give $100 billion to a foreign nation. And the next incarnation is unwilling to follow through with that obligation because it's a continuing obligation. Who has legal precedence in that case? What if the executive branch says, no, we're not doing that? National security concern, the situation has changed. Who has precedence legally in this case? And so it was right to pause this, but it's only a pause. It's a for now situation. It is a victory, legally speaking, but it's only a temporary victory. It will have to be further litigated in the judiciary to figure out who actually has the right to disperse the money. Does it have to be dispersed? We're not exactly sure, maybe. It'll take them months to consider it, by the way. It'll be an interesting case. I personally side more with people who are skeptical of giving foreign aid, and I do this for a number of reasons. Let's say that you pledge, $50 billion to a foreign country, which you shouldn't be doing in the first place because we've got veterans living under goddamn highway overpasses and shit like that. We've got enough homeless people in the country. We've got enough impoverished people in the country, and our debt is so high that we're effectively destitute. We should not be giving any form of foreign aid except in dire emergency towards very close allies, in my opinion. That being said, let's say you pledge money to a country that is relatively friendly towards you, and you pledge, aid of some sort to them, some African nation or something in Latin America or Asia. And then their political alliance shifts considerably. They undergo a coup. They swing towards the Eastern Bloc. Do you still owe them that money? I would say no. I would say that aid should always be conditional when it's given at all, and it should rarely be given. Like say there's a major hurricane smashes into the coast of France, close ally of the United States, and millions of people are without power and jobs and so forth. Giving them aid under that circumstance, they're part of NATO, they're a close and long-term ally, they can be counted on to not politically flip towards the Eastern Bloc. Okay, then you've got a situation in which maybe aid is given. But let's say that you give it to Rwanda, and the Rwandan government is like, the U.S. is pretty cool. But then they undergo a coup, and people waving machetes around overthrow the government, and all of a sudden they declare communism or something like that. Do you still really legally need to give the aid to them? No, I would say no. Then we'll see what the Supreme Court says about such situations. Should you? Definitely no. That would be a definite no for me. You should not give them any money because you're effectively paying your adversaries. Adversarial towards your ideology and towards your nation. Unfortunately, the United States has fallen into a pattern of giving money to other countries in order to effectively try to bribe them. It doesn't work. This didn't work for ancient Rome either. Now, I don't believe that the U.S. empire is going to be falling anytime soon. We're only 100 years into our empire form. I would say it started around the time of the Great White Navy. So we get another century in us probably of dominance, which is great, by the way, because it means that us and our children will be safe and sound, unless there's an atomic war or something like that. That's always possible. But that being said, this happened in Rome. They paid Alaric and his forces, mercenaries, Germanic mercenaries, to slaughter their enemies. Then they stopped paying him. And Alaric got mad because he was still doing Rome's bidding. What did they do? Well, Rome was growing weak and decadent, and they had unreinforced their walls, and they had poor leadership, and it was basically a decadent oligarchy at that point. And Alaric said, well, fuck you, and he decided to besiege the city. It got to the point where people were literally cannibalizing one another. Eventually, some of the aristocrats in the city said, fuck this shit, and opened up the gates. That's what happened. Now, this is not the time of ancient Rome. We have atomic weapons, nuclear weapons. We have all the toys that make the noise, tanks and shit like that. We're a little bit more stable now and definitely more technologically sophisticated, although the Romans, for their time, they were doing pretty well. That being said, the situation is fundamentally the same. We don't need to give a shit ton of money to other countries that are directly adversarial towards us, that are in some cases outright hostile towards us, or at the very least are competitors to us. It's not necessary. I don't give a fuck if your country develops. It's not my country. It means nothing to me. My tax money should be going to taking care of the homeless in this country, to taking care of the sick in this country, to helping subsidize the impoverished in this country. If you're going to parasitize my goddamn money, at least let it go to other Americans. Now, I understand there are people in the world that I have great sympathy for, and I know that not all of my audience is American at all. There are people in the world that are suffering under hostile regimes, under communism and so forth, and I have great sympathy for them. But charity starts at home. If we can't build a stronger United States, we're not going to continue in the capacity of being able to help any of these other people in the world. If we can help ourselves first, stabilize our economic situation and so forth, we'll be much more well equipped to wage wars if we need to, which we should do as sparingly as possible. Welfare for other countries, which we should do sparingly and responsibly, etc. We'll also be able to engage in better diplomacy because our country will be in a stronger position, economically speaking. That allows us more latitude. It also gives us a shit ton more money. Why aren't we doing that? It's an America First policy. It makes sense. I don't have any problem with anyone else in the world. No North Korean ever punched me in the face or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that I want to hand them $10,000 of my taxpayer money. It's just unacceptable. And thankfully, the Trump administration understands this, at least to some degree. And John Roberts has, quashed this and said, well, you can't really force, a federal judge can't force you to disperse this money. We're going to wait and see. We're going to litigate it. Well, that's great. This is wonderful news. That's about all. Peace out.